What's up, YouTube? So we are down here in our studio, and we just got done recording another podcast.
Another banger!
Yeah, a banger of a podcast. So I just wanted to get on here real quick and do a little intro. We, in this Vinny podcast that we did, we had a little bit of a malfunction. One of our adapters for the cameras kind of pooed out on us, to say the least. Yeah. But so we lost our high quality video footage. All we have left, unfortunately, is the webcam on the computer. It's grainy. It's not the best, but it's what we have, and we still want to give you a podcast for this week. So that's what we're going to do. And we will have this fixed.
We got a new adapter.
Yeah, I think we've already got it fixed. So we're going to work on it, but I hope you enjoy this podcast. It's a good one.
Welcome back to another episode of Born Again Bowhunting Podcast. On today's episode, we have Jaret's buddy, Vinny Defelice.
Yeah.
There we go.
That's right. That's right.
How's it going tonight?
Oh, good. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So,
yeah, let's just jump right into the icebreakers.
get some icebreakers.
Yeah, let's do that.
Alrighty. So during the hunting season, do you have a go-to like energy drink or coffee, water?
What's your go-to drink during the season?
H2O, straight water. Never really got into energy drinks. Don't really drink them at all. For the most part, just water throughout the whole season. Just something to keep you hydrated. Mm-hmm. I mean, I'll just always throw water in my pack. Something, especially if I'm sitting for a couple hours. Always just take a water.
Good old.
Stick to it.
Nothing wrong
Don't get
with
away
that.
from that.
Nope.
Yeah, nothing wrong with that.
Oh,
Question number 2 is, what's your current bow setup?
A Matthews V3. It's a 27-inch. I believe 2020 model.
Yep.
Bought that last year. I've shot Hoyt for years, and I was like, I gotta try a Matthews. So I shot a couple different ones. Then I was like, I'm going out elk hunting, so I got that 27-inch axle to axle. Mm-hmm. Took it out there. I was carrying miles up through the mountains, and then I really liked it. As far as now, hunting out of stands or blinds or anything like that. Just being able to move, have that little bit extra, without that bulk of the bow.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a nice bow.
Yep. I really enjoy them.
You just get away from that Hoyt train.
It was hard.
Yeah, I remember he was like really contemplating. He's like, man, I don't know if I can do it. Yeah.
They all make good bows nowadays.
They do.
It's just
yeah.
preference.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
It's just like the
Ford,
manufacturers for
Chevy,
trucks. Yep.
yeah.
What your preference is.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yoda.
then
Toyota.
Boys, we got a problem. I'm all out of Arnie.
ooh, we just started.
I know it.
And then the final question is, if you're running any kind of trail cameras, what's your favorite trail camera?
For right now, I've just been running reveals for the most part as far as cell cams. As far as card cameras, Brownings. I have a few Brownings, had those for a few years. Always been reliable. Mm-hmm. Been running those for, last probably 3-4 seasons. And really, really like the Brownings.
Yeah.
Yeah, they make a good camera.
They do, yeah.
I remember Levi Morgan picked them up. Like, that was very popular when I worked at a store. I sold a lot of Brownings for a while.
Yeah.
And
they actually have a decent camera, to be honest.
Yeah.
Pretty high quality pictures.
Quality's nice, like video mode on some of the higher end SD card cameras are really nice.
Yeah.
So
We got another Tacticam guy.
dude, I know. We gotta get these Tacticam guys out here.
We've been talking. We've been talking about the Wise Eye.
Oh, yeah. Every time I go over and see Jaret, it's like, hey, you really got to get one of these cameras. I was like, I know, man. But I was like, do I want another app on my phone? But it's like.
Well, it kind of, and also when I had the 2 Tacticams, and then you had one of the originals.
Yes.
And then you had
X.
some reveal. Yeah. And then they did get better. They got quite a bit better than.
Yeah, I'm going to be dead honest with you. I think my favorite one's still the original.
Yeah.
I feel like I miss a few pictures with the X. But the original, I mean, I know I'm not getting all the pictures.
Yeah.
But still, I
So-
feel like I picked up quite a bit.
So I have a little bit of inside knowledge about that. I'm not gonna say who told me this, but it's a worthy, what's the word I'm looking for? Source, yeah, trustful source. So the reason why Tacticam is kind of, and that's kind of like what everybody says. The original one was the best, and now they kind of are slowly starting to. So they grew faster than what they could
Yeah.
So supply and demand.
I seen that happen.
They had to outsource it. So once they outsourced it, the quality went down.
Yeah, I believe that.
So not to bash on Tacticam.
Yeah.
It's just, they grew so fast.
Yeah, they did what they had to do to
they couldn't keep
selling
up. So the newer cameras are actually not as reliable as the original.
I mean, really, that was the first big wave of cell cameras that came out. I mean,
Affordable.
The Spy
Yes,
Point Mini,
yes.
though, I think that kind of...
yes, that was...
The Spy Point Mini came out. It was a $100 camera. Those things are a great intro camera, but other than that, like
you get them for a year and then you figure out what you really want.
Yeah. It's like, oh man, I got a cell
Yeah.
camera. It's cool. But you're like, you zoom in on it. You're like, is this a doe with a tree behind her? Or is this a buck that
how
I'm
many
after?
points does that thing
Yeah,
have? Is it
it's-
12 or 6?
They're, like I said, they're a great entry camera and they have 100 free pictures a month and that's about it.
Yeah.
I'm excited to see, like, in the next 5 years, what they can do
Oh,
with these
yeah.
cell cameras.
Yeah.
It's gonna get crazy. Like, they're gonna come up with some. Maybe let's come up with some ideas right now.
And people are whining now.
Yeah.
Can you imagine here in a few years?
I mean, like the Ring doorbells, you can talk to the deer, like, hey,
Leave my corn pile alone.
yeah. You can yell at the raccoons eating your corn. Yeah,
Yeah, I'm excited too. It's going to be, it'll be wild.
Yeah,
it's gonna
Yeah.
be crazy.
there'll be some cool things coming out for sure.
Absolutely.
Yep. So why don't we get into him
Yeah.
introducing himself? Talk about who you are, where you're from, what you do for a living, stuff like that.
Okay. Well, I'm Vinny Defelice, as introduced earlier. I'm from Shreve, Ohio, just on the border of Wayne and Holmes up here in northeastern Ohio. And I own a business, forest management business, Heartland Forest Management. I'm a consulting forester. So I work with, variety of different landowners throughout the state, just working on sustainable forest management, on their properties, how you can better improve the timber and the wildlife habitat at the same time.
Very cool.
That's
Yeah, it's
cool.
awesome.
Yeah, I'm very jealous of your job. I'm not gonna lie.
I'm
Yeah.
in the
Dude,
woods every day.
Tell me about it. Don't get on his Snapchat train because when he's just all day, oh, look, there's a shed. Oh, found a bunch of deer. It's like, and
That
you're-
was last year. That was last year. I had 30 plus sheds,
still,
and this
dude,
year I have
he's
2.
out dumping around the woods all day and you're just working.
Jaret's up on a roof, and I'm just out cruising around.
Yeah. It's not fun. Makes you very jealous.
I'm very jealous.
But yeah, that's awesome that you can always out marking trees and cutting and looking and
Yeah. I mean, it's a lot of that, a lot of invasive species removal. And as of lately, the local storm that we had last June, normally I don't like to do a whole lot of cutting myself.
Right.
And normally I don't. But just with the, that storm being local, I've just been helping out, some smaller landowners, trying to salvage, a few logs here and there, from their properties. And that's been a bulk of what I've done here in the last year. So that's pretty much been eating up a lot of my time.
I believe it.
So what got you started into this?
Really, it's kind of been around it, all my life, since I've been little, and then I really just had a passion for being outdoors. And I've been seeing that there's a lot of, I guess, forest practices out there that you're seeing that they're just not sustainable. You drive by, you're going down the road, you drive by the woods, you're like, man, that woods just got butchered. And it's not sustainable. And so, everybody's going by and you're seeing that stuff. And it's like, I don't want to be with that. I want to, do something new where, everything's sustainable and, it doesn't look like a mess when you're done.
Yep.
Yeah.
And that's kind of that was the driving factor that I was like, I want to make a difference in, what this, around this area, what the forestry industry is, kind of a staple for it around here. And that's what kind of drove me into going to Hocking College, got a degree in forest management. And that was really kind of the deciding factor for me to get into it.
Cool.
yeah,
Sorry.
no.
Work call.
Actually, that's personal. Shayna, you interrupted the podcast. Keep going.
So you had a really good year this year, really, for hunting. I mean, between the deer that we have here sitting on the table and missed opportunities.
Yes.
This was a really good year for deer.
Yes, it was. Going into the season, I was a little worried. Not gonna lie, last year I was, end of the season, I was watching the cameras, didn't really have a whole lot to look forward to, and I was like, this year I'm gonna have to find a deer to kill, and it kind of came down to that first week of October. I started having a few deer show up. There was a deer that I targeted. He showed up once in August, just one picture, just huge mainframe 10. And then I started getting a few pictures late September, right around the first of bow season, but nothing daylight yet. October 11th, he daylighted. Then ever since then, I mean, it was every couple days. I mean, he was in...
You're referring to this deer that you killed?
No.
This was another deer.
This was another deer. This deer I didn't even know existed.
Gotcha.
So,
Man, that's rough.
This is honestly one of those unique stories. We'll get there.
Okay.
I'm sure this deer still thought you that you thought he didn't exist still, but
yeah,
here he is. It's like, man, I wish he would have maintained that.
Yeah. So I was chasing this other deer. He's probably just a touch bigger, real heavy mainframe 10. And it came down, I started to get a decent pattern on him, came down to November 12th was the day. So I was heading into my stand. I get like halfway up the hill and I can get service. I checked my cell cam. He was in front of the cell cam as I was walking up. So I was like, oh, great.
What do you do now?
So I backed down the hill, got into a different stand, and I'm on the side of the hill. And it was a little bit windy that morning, and that wind was just started swirling. It wasn't, the ideal setup for right. So I wanted to be up on top of the hill. You get that more steady wind. And then I check my camera. I get up, and I get a picture of a doe running away. And I was like, with the tail up, I was like, I got busted. I was like, that deer's gone. So at that point, I was like, what do I do? Because that's really the only deer I was targeting at that point. And so I was like, I just backed out of there, went to a different property down the road, hunted that morning, didn't even have a target deer there. I was like, you know what? If a doe walks by, I'm shooting her.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay. So it got to about noon that day. I was like, I'm going back in there, but I'm sitting in a different stand, but it's still in the same ridge system that I bumped him from that morning. And so I get up there, just deer. It was the first day it really got really cold after that warm spell. And I think there's a little bit of snow, and I probably saw a dozen deer within like 45 minutes. Next thing I know, I looked over, and this is the first time I sat this stand, and there's a trail about 30 yards to my left, real faint trail. And I was like, oh, there's a doe. So I'm going to pull out my rangefinder, just a Ranger, see what it... So I Ranger, no longer put my rangefinder back. I looked over, he's standing at like 40 yards, that buck. And he comes, same trail. I already had it ranged, drew back, perfect, and
Gave him the old
and he paused for a quick second, started off again right after the doe. So I gave him one of them, it really got on him. And he stopped, everything felt perfect, shot high, above the spine. I don't know.
You hit him? Or
Yes.
Through the backstrap, pretty much.
Yep, right
Not
through the
this
backstrap.
deer.
No.
This is okay.
No.
This is a bigger one.
We're talking about a bigger one.
Yeah.
Yeah, and hit that deer, and I knew right then, I was like, well, that's pretty much done for that deer. I tracked him, tried to find any blood, but I saw the arrow. The arrow went like halfway through and was sticking through his back. Mm-hmm. But it was just high above the spine. I don't know if he ducked just because I had to stop him twice.
Yeah.
Or, it was picture perfect. 30 yards, I'm not saying he ducked or I messed up, either or, but solid deer. Really wish,
really solid deer. I saw pictures of him. I was like, ooh, that would have been a
Can you
nice
share some
one.
pictures with us, or is the deer still alive?
I'm not sure if he's still alive.
So he disappeared after this then?
Well, there's a picture with an arrow in his back.
Nice.
And I did get a picture late season it was end of January of a shed buck
That looked a lot like him.
with a hole in his back, right where I hit that deer.
I'd say that's it.
It's
then.
probably him, so I'm fingers crossed for next year. Should be, if he's still around, hopefully next year get another crack at him, because that was actually year 2 on that deer.
Of
The year before,
him
I
being there, yeah.
actually hit a limb. I shot at that deer the year before. I had one little window is through a pine thicket. I was in the stand, and I just smoked a limb. Like a 2-inch pine limb, smoked it. And when that deer showed back up this year, I was like, game on. So that was really the deer I was
You're just not supposed to get him till he's 200.
Yeah, no joke.
Maybe.
He needs a good nickname.
So what
First
was?
thing that comes to mind, but go ahead.
Go ahead. No.
It's something with broke back. It's got to be the nickname. Sorry, that's just what it is.
Just what it is.
So to paint the picture, what is this deer? What do you think he would score
He was probably 160.
in the 60s?
Yeah.
Has a clean 10.
Yes.
That's a good deer.
That's a
Yeah,
real.
it's a pretty deer,
Yeah, that's a real good deer.
and he'll be really pretty next year
I'm
because
sure
he made
Well,
a decent little jump from last year.
It depends on the injury,
Yes.
though.
Yeah. That injury, I don't think is really going to affect him
Nice.
that much.
You never know. I mean,
Yeah, you don't. Yeah. I guess
Well,
we'll see.
talking about injuries, there was a deer on the same property last year. I believe it got hit by a car, had a really messed up right shoulder. And last year he was like 140-inch 10-point. I actually found one side off him. He shed Christmas Day. And I went in there the day after Christmas, found this shed. And this year he comes back, same limp, spike.
Really?
Yes, really, just kind of a gnarly old
I believe
spike.
it.
Wow.
But he never, the weirdest thing with that shed was, like, it was all rough. He never rubbed a tree. Nothing was wore down on his antlers. None of the burrs, anything. It was all really sharp. All the tines were like, nothing was wore down. Everything was super pointy, sharp. And I don't think he ever fought, never made any rubs, anything. He was just hurt that bad I think he must have got hit in velvet in the summer because he drew a 140-inch rack that year.
Yeah.
And he looked like, your typical 3-year-old,
Yeah.
and then this year he comes back and he's a spike. West Virginia 11-point.
On both sides, he was a
Yes.
spike.
Yep.
Wow.
No joke.
Wow.
Yep.
But same injury.
Yes. Oh, yeah. 110% same deer.
That's crazy. It just goes to show, like, sometimes injuries make them turn out to be 300, and then sometimes injuries just make them shrink.
Yeah.
Yeah, it all depends.
So you never know. You never know.
Jeez. Yeah, I remember he was texting me when he hit it high, and he was so just like, dang.
Oh, I know. That was really the one. Like when he showed back up, I thought he got killed last year in muzzleloader season because I heard from the neighbors that last year he was an 8-point, but he had this, those two little nubs. You can tell he was going to grow into a 10. Just always really heavy. And I heard from the neighbors they shot a wide 8-point, and I thought that was that deer. That's the only wide 8-point. Yeah, but then this year showed back up, and it was game on, and looking forward to next year.
Yeah, hopefully.
Yeah.
So I want to touch back a little bit. I got a funny thing I'm going to do next year. So you said you mad at him or did the old brat.
Yeah.
So like, think about this. Every big buck in the world has heard that, right?
Yep.
If you think about it.
Mm-hmm.
They just, and I'm not going to take credit for this. I heard this on a podcast, and I can't remember which podcast it was, but next year I am meowing at every deer I shoot.
That's a good idea.
I am not joking. Like,
Good
I'm
idea.
going to draw back, meow, and that
Can't
deer's
wait
going
for
to...
the video.
That deer's just gonna pang, stop. Like, what the world was that? He's never heard that before.
Yeah.
I'm telling you.
It might work.
It's
Yeah,
not
I'm
a
telling you,
bad
it's going to work. This guy in Iowa said that he got busted so many times from Brat at big deer. He started meowing at him, and he said ever since that he started meowing at deer, they freeze like a rock. They have no idea what it is.
Yeah, it's something that they've probably never heard.
Yeah.
And they're
So
like,
next,
what is that?
you look or watch out, everybody watching or listening. Next year, I promise you, first year I shoot, I'm gonna go meow.
Old Catman up in the tree
Catch
here.
it now on YouTube.
He has to wear a cat tail to the woods.
Yeah.
Get him a clip-on cat
That's a little
tail.
far, but maybe if I kill a booner, I will.
Yeah.
How about that? If I stop a booner with the old meow,
The next year you gotta wear
the
a
next
cat
year
tail.
I'll wear a cat
Then
tail.
like those cat ears that go over top your head. Just
Yeah.
just looks like what. Yeah, I'll stop
Yep,
there.
Mark,
Yeah, good.
mark my words. I promise. Next year I'm gonna meow at everything. I'm
Oh,
serious.
my.
I'm serious.
Oh no, I trust me. I believe you.
I'm just gonna draw, be at full draw. Meow. Oh boy, he's just gonna boom. And I'm just gonna zip him.
You should, if you could try barking later.
No, I'm not.
You don't want to bark.
The
at him.
meow is like so easy to do. You
That's
can't,
true.
You can't like, barf, barf, like,
And it's pretty close to doing meh anyway.
yeah, you're meow. Yours was so good. We could try like different varieties of meow. Meow.
We'll have to do a study.
Oh my gosh.
Dude, I'm telling you, I cannot wait.
I can't wait for the
The
video.
content is gonna be killer.
You gonna try it out on a doe first, or
Dude, whatever walks by.
First booner he sees.
Yeah, first booner.
If it doesn't listen, you gotta get the cougar out. You know what I'm saying?
Oh my gosh.
Oh man.
All right, let's get back to this.
Clip it, baby.
All right. So, you had the mishap with the big deer.
yes,
Now, so this deer that you ended up shooting, you didn't even know that this dude existed.
until the day after
You,
I hit that deer.
yeah.
So I had a camera up. So that week prior,
When did you hit him again? November 11th? 12th?
12th. So probably, November 8th, November 9th, just at my brother's house, little 8 acres. I was like, you know what? I'm going to go throw a camera up here, corner of a pasture field. The camera is on a fence post. And, I'm not huge for baiting, but it's like, hey, I got 8 acres. There's nothing attracting her. Threw a little bit of corn out. I was like, I'll just see what comes in, just kind of curious more than anything. And the day after I hit that one, I was like, well, I'm just going to go check that camera. Sure enough, this guy's on there daylight nonstop. So I go back to the house.
Dude, like that pile had been there for years.
Oh, yeah, clockwork. Never seen a deer pattern like this before in my life. So I go back home, grab a ground blind. I'm like, okay, this might, and didn't even brush it in. I didn't have anything to brush it in with. I mean, just stuck it right in the edge of the pasture. And I was like, okay, this is going to take him a couple days to get used to. So I didn't hunt the next day. He daylighted again.
With the blind sitting there. This is wild.
How dumb is this deer?
That's why he's sitting here.
Just the whole thing of events. It's like you would think
Dude, that's
that
crazy.
blind would. The blind's just chilling there.
Yeah,
And he-
25 yards away.
I've had does blow at a blind. Like, I don't really
With
like
nothing
hunt-
in it.
Yeah, I don't really
Yep.
like hunting out of blinds because, like you said, it takes them a while to get used to it.
That was my first bow deer out of a blind. First deer out of a blind since probably when I was hunting youth season in 2011.
Do you
I shot
not
with a
have?
gun.
Did you not have access to a tree?
No.
No, there was no trees I could get a stand on.
So what was he living in?
It's maybe a 15-acre block of timber to the south. It was all storm damage. So it is all thicker.
Gnarly.
Yep.
Yeah.
And just a bunch of blowovers. And so then after that, I think he disappeared for like 2 days, but it was like the 13th, 14th. I believe he was locked down with a doe. So at this point, I know about him. I switched out. I just had a cheap little Tasco camera that I put up there.
Yeah, I don't blame you.
And I switched it out for a cell camera. And at that point, all right, I'm watching this deer, seeing what he does. And it's like every day, 3 o'clock. Or if he didn't show up,
Dude, it's wild.
yeah, if he didn't show up one day, it'd be like, I'd watch. If he showed up that morning, he would show up in between 2 and 4 o'clock. That means, if I
Like
had
PM during
yes,
daylight.
yes, if I had confirmation that deer was in there because he'd be in there in the morning, he would be bedded, probably within 200 yards, be in there with him in like 2 and 4. And this is right off, main state route.
Yeah.
And people coming in and out the driveway, there's a lot of different variables that I was, fighting against. And so I was sitting at work, I think it was Thursday, the 17th of November. And, I'm sitting there and I was like, I'm going to go, check tactic cam, see what's going on here. 8:30 in the morning, he's standing there. I was like, okay. So I started hustling. And I got off work at 1 o'clock, got in the blind, and my brother was there. I had like 4 does come in, and my brother was there, and he started unloading hay like 100 yards away at the barn. And so all those does spook off. I'm sitting there. It's like, well, I don't know if that's going to mess up this evening or whatever. Sure enough, 3:30 rolls around. I'm just sitting there, I'm just on my phone at this point. I literally have one, little
Window.
alleyway that I can see down out of this. And I look up and he's just standing there. I'm like, okay. So at this point, it's like, when's my brother going to come pulling back in the driveway? That's going to spook him. And I was like, okay, I just need to stay calm. So I just turned my camera on, filming it.
So how far away is he when you see him here?
25 yards.
He's at the corn pile, essentially.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I can't. That's all I can see.
Yeah,
I mean,
I gotcha.
he's there, he was standing exactly where I shot him.
Gotcha.
And so he was just cool as a cucumber, just standing there doing his thing.
Just another normal day for him.
Yep. And so I just come back, come the full draw, take a deep breath, let it fly. And at that point, it was like, I just wounded another deer. I knew I 10-ringed him, but in the video, and I was in, just my eyesight watching him run away was my arrow sticking 80% out of this deer. And that had me worried. I mean, I knew a perfect shot, but I let him sit probably 4 hours on that. It was one of those types of shots. It's like, well, if he's dead,
He's dead.
he's dead.
If it hit something good, he's dead.
Yeah,
if it didn't.
I knew I didn't. It wasn't far back.
So you
I mean,
didn't
it was
get any
just perfect.
penetration?
Yeah, and that was my biggest fear. And come to find out, go back 4 hours later, he's piled up 40 yards away. I mean, I heard. Well, it was in a mowed grass strip, so I couldn't really hear him run away, but I heard him jump back into the woods, and I heard a big crash. And I don't know if you guys can see.
Hold on a second. Talking to the mic, I'll show it. Go ahead and talk about it.
There is his G3 there on the left side. He had a little run-in with a tree.
A little run.
A little run-in with a tree there.
Cracked off his biggest tine.
Yeah, and it took it probably a good 20 minutes to be able to find that. Yeah,
Little super glue never hurt.
that's right. That's right. And and that's pretty much the story on that deer. No history, knew him for about a week.
Is that not crazy?
That's crazy.
It's a solid
That's
deer.
but the crazy thing is a lot of deer that size get killed that way. You know what I mean?
I know
Yeah.
it.
Like
At a
people
corn
just
pile or something.
not even just
Yeah.
at a
Oh,
corn
just-
pile,
just-
but just
Yeah.
like people
Yep.
are like, hey, I literally saw this deer and next week shot him.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And obviously I would have loved to kill that other deer that hit. That was my main target deer. And, for that to happen and then a week later come back, get on another 150,
Yeah.
what are the chances? I mean,
Yeah.
And what are the chances
Dude,
that
that's a solid deer for sure.
it's yeah, dude, that is a solid deer. And just the fact that you were able to just set up and he's like just not a care in the world.
I've never hunted a deer like that before. I mean,
This might be a once in a lifetime thing, honestly.
well, I hope it's not.
Why can't we stumble into something like that?
Hey, I tried to let him shoot. I was like, dude, can I just go shoot him?
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
He said no.
I was like, give me a couple tries. Well, that was a second sit for him. I did sit one morning, and he didn't show. But then that was the second time in hunting for him.
Wow.
What did he end up taping off then?
I am at 155.
155.
Yep.
He looks bigger than that
He
to me.
does.
It just he doesn't have
He
a
doesn't
lot
have
of
any
mass,
Right.
Yeah.
but like in the picture, I mean, that deer had a huge that Roman nose,
Yeah.
white gray
the body
face.
on that deer's, it looks ancient. He is a big.
Yeah, he just he
Big.
really didn't have the mass, and I wish I had history with him.
Yeah.
Because then I have a better idea. I'm thinking
I think-
4,
yeah.
5 maybe. It's hard to tell.
Who cares?
It really,
He's dead.
Right?
Obviously didn't have much pressure throughout his life, I can tell you that.
No.
Actually not.
Oh, boy's gonna look good on the wall.
Yeah. No
Yeah.
joke. No joke. Well, congrats. And,
Yeah, thank you.
That's an awesome deer for sure.
So that's something I wanted to talk about is like no pattern, or I mean, obviously a pattern on this deer, but what was he doing last year? What was he doing before this that had him come into a corn pile like that and just stay?
Well, I assume, if it was my guess, and I'm no expert, but I would assume that there would be somebody baiting close.
Oh, there has to be.
Because-
I mean, you go around here, every 40-acre block's got a corn pile or a feeder in it.
Yeah.
You know,
like,
it's the deer will find it.
Yep.
He's obviously seen corn piles before.
he knew what it was.
Yeah.
And obviously
Yeah.
he's never been pressured on one.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, sometimes deer just go, 4
I
or
wa-
5 years until they get
I wonder if he
an
hung
arrow
around,
thrown at him.
if he hangs around. He probably was hanging around there all his life, and you just have never seen him.
No, because
Never thought about hunting.
Nobody
Wow.
had ever seen him. Really?
No, last 2-3 years I didn't even put a camera up there.
Right.
And I mean, I kind of had a little bit of insight, so I saw really nice deer in the summer out there, and then my brother's seen a couple because there's bean fields out across from his house, and then people driving down the road. I had a buddy goes, "Dude, there's a big wide buck out there by your brother's." I'm like, okay. So that's what made me put the camera out there in the first place. Just insight from people driving by. My dad seen him a couple times from the road, and I was like, well, I'm just gonna put a camera up there, see if I can get a picture of him. And then sure enough, boom.
Bang.
Yeah. A pattern like never other.
That's crazy.
I do want to make a point because I've made this same mistake. It just goes to show for anybody listening or watching that never give up on a spot, because crop rotation, acorn production, like don't go into a spot just assuming like, hey, he's not in here this year, he's not going to be in there next year, like I'm going to wash this spot. The way it's so hard to gain access anymore that if you gain access to a property or have, family member or whatever, I always put a camera out, in my opinion, because Vinny's got a perfect story about how, he, for the last couple of years, he hadn't rented a camera. Some people told him there was decent deer out there. He throws a camera up and bang. So, it just goes to show that don't get frustrated if you don't get pictures of a good one year, because you never know what will happen. And, that tornado went through and maybe it changed where he was bedding. And, like I was saying, crop rotation, acorn production, all that stuff factors.
Yeah, you really just never know.
A new neighbor gets access to a piece and pressures a piece that never had
pushing
pressure.
deer off.
And then he wants to move. Like, never go into an area and think, well, there's not a big one this year, there's never going to be a big one.
Yeah.
That's not the case.
Yeah, I hear that every year from people like, oh, there's no big deer around here. There's no big deer around here. It's like, give it another year. I mean, I had on multiple different properties that I hunt, and there's properties last year where that's where my target deer was. And then this year, I didn't have a deer that I wanted to target there.
Yep.
And it every year it's different. I mean, it is. And then, it's just what 3 and 4 year olds get killed around the area the year before too, and deer move in, get pushed out. It really is, sometimes you get that same deer every year over and over and over again, until he gets killed or dies or whatever. But then sometimes just 1 year, flip of a switch, boom, here's this really nice buck. Where'd he come from?
Yeah.
I know. I wish when you shot one, you got to just know everything. You know what I mean?
Like the battle wounds,
Right.
like what he's been through.
You shoot one, and then you check your mailbox, and there's a packet with everything you need to know about the buck you shot.
Dude, I always
Where he was born, how old he is.
For real,
you know what I
for
mean?
real. Like when I pick up a shed, that's the first thing that goes through my mind is like I appreciate God's creation, and I look at that antler, and it's gonna sound corny, but like I feel every part of the antler, and in my mind I'm like, if this thing could tell a story, what this has gone through, and the fact that a deer carried this for 3/4 of the year and then dropped it, and now I got it in my hand. It's just so cool.
Yeah, dude,
So cool.
It's wild.
Yeah.
And that's the thing is, like you said, you don't really like to hunt over corn, but in that situation,
Yeah, that's. I mean, I just pretty much put corn out there just to get a picture of the deer
right,
first off.
just to
see,
funnel it to the
yeah.
camera.
Yeah, and then it's like, okay, this is my only chance of killing this deer, so this is what I'm gonna have to do.
Yeah.
There was no other food source. I mean, he had to go out of his way to get the spot.
He would have had to have eaten yard grass.
Yes, or he would have hopped
maybe.
hopped in the pasture.
Yeah,
And,
Maybe old boy was eating some yard grass.
Yeah.
Kept him alive.
it's definitely
for so long.
possible.
Dude,
He was jumping in the pasture and
yeah,
that stuff.
you
from
never
in there.
know. Honestly, you never know.
That's wild, man.
It's crazy.
They don't get big by, living in places where they can get killed.
that's right.
So,
Wild.
what else you got on that notes, Jerry?
Oh, I don't know. I mean, I was gonna talk a little turkey since I knew his story wasn't the longest one we've ever had.
Anything else that you want to talk about before we shift topics?
Well, I mean, it was kind of a short story for this one.
What about the shot?
Yeah, I was just
Okay.
thinking the same thing. Let's touch base on like maybe your arrow setup. And we're not smashing or bashing any kind of product or anything like that, but obviously you didn't get any penetration, or we thought you didn't.
Yeah,
Let's talk about, because obviously he went 40 yards and piled up. Obviously you got into something good.
Right. Yeah. So when he was running away, that my biggest concern was penetration. Like I was saying earlier, seeing that arrow dangling out of him, only looking, maybe it went in maybe 3 inches.
Yeah.
And after ruining that buck the week before, it's like, not again.
Yeah.
It's just that size. Like, I'm not going to do this twice in 1 year. And so I was shooting, 70 pounds, gold tip arrow and with a severed broadhead. And the only thing that was running through my head at that point was like, somehow did I hit, those 2 ribs and, that might have stopped that broadhead. And
Expandable.
you always, yes,
Yeah.
you
Candle head.
always, think the worst case scenario.
Yep.
And then, so what ended up happening is perfect shot right through the heart, hit the opposite side shoulder, and the arrow snapped on the inside, and then the shaft worked back out.
Yep.
So the broadhead was actually lodged in the opposite side shoulder.
Okay.
So that's really what happened there. And, if I would have known that deer died within a couple seconds, I would have hopped right over there and got him. But, I just kind of erred on the side of caution and waited, 4 hours. That's my biggest thing. When I was younger, I'd always be like, oh, I want to go find that deer. I want to go find that deer. And I feel like I'd have a lot nicer wall right now.
If you just waited.
When I was, 10, 12, just getting in the compound hunting, there's a couple deer that I hit that I'm like, oh, really solid deer.
Could have been different.
It could have been different, because you're like, you hit him back. It's either, liver, possibly gut. And I gave him like maybe 4 hours. And hindsight, it should have been
24.
at least, 12 to 24. And, maybe even got a dog at that point in time.
Yeah.
But
I think
Or a
also.
Just Matt. Just get Matt.
yeah.
Yeah,
I'll track him
He'll
up
be
for you.
Just makes cat noises the whole way.
We need to get a T-shirt that just says meow.
With a big buck.
Schwack at the bottom of
Cat
it.
with antlers.
Oh, there you go.
That's sweet.
Underneath, just meow. I will rock that shirt.
Dude, I would too.
In the video, you were shooting a lighted knot, weren't you? Right?
No, I was
Okay.
not.
It was
It was
like
just
a
so
green knot?
daylight.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was so daylight.
It's 4 o'clock in the evening.
Yeah.
But there's still 2 hours of daylight.
Oh yeah.
I remember you sent me the video because you were like, "What what's in your head? What are you thinking?" And it does, man. That arrow looks like it goes, and when it gets to the deer, it stops, but it doesn't, because it's straight away from the camera, so you can't see any angle to the arrow. You can just see the knock, and then when he turns and runs, it's already hit and popped. So when he turns, the whole arrow, basically the whole arrow is sticking out.
Yeah.
And I was like, I think I said the same thing he was thinking. I was like, man, I think it went in and came out, but I'm like,
Penetration.
I don't know, man.
I was like, is he dead? I was like, that's maybe 3 inches of penetration. Like, is that deer dead?
Yeah.
But where I hit him and, having the video, knowing that's like, he's either piled up within, like 50 yards or he's still trucking.
He's gone.
It even shows, like, even when you're filming stuff, there's so many unknowns.
Yep.
Yeah.
It can still be deceiving a little bit.
Oh, very much so. Because
It's probably even worse.
we could have had the different outcome. We could have, let's say he actually didn't get any penetration, and you wouldn't have been able to tell any different, even though he had it on film.
No.
It looked the exact same.
What was the blood like?
Honestly, I think I found one drop at impact, but I was trying it through a yard. Like it was so green and it was mowed grass.
Golf course.
I love it.
Yeah. And honestly, I found one little speck of blood and that was it. Now when he crashed, there was quite a bit of blood, where he crashed. And that's it.
Wow.
That's interesting.
So I actually wasn't the one, because we started walking up and had my buddy Matt, and he goes, well, there he is. Because at that point, I was really getting sketched up because I wasn't finding any blood. And I mean, that was 20 yards later, and there he was laying,
Wide open on the old golf green.
Yeah.
No, he was piled up in the woods, so
Yeah,
the pictures looked good.
Yeah.
That's
With a
awesome.
broken tine.
What a story, man. That's insane.
cool.
I know, and it just shows you how you really you never know, man.
Yeah.
Yep.
never know.
Yep. There's always a little bit of luck involved with all this, like you can be at the right tree, the right location, but if you don't have, there's so many so many variables that you can't control in hunting that, as much as I hate to admit it, there is a little bit of luck involved. You can be the most educated person in the world, but if you don't have a little bit of luck on your side, sometimes things just don't work out,
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
And the
that's awesome.
persistence. He still went out, put a camera out somewhere.
Yeah.
Even though in his head he was
respect
like,
it.
"There ain't no way I'm gonna get any pictures of anything."
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like-
It's true.
Last
The
ditch
only-
effort.
Yeah. The only insight I had was just people saying, oh, hey, there's a nice deer around there. And I was like, well,
You just
worth a shot.
you got to keep that mentality,
That's
man.
awesome.
You just got to keep plugging.
Yeah.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah, well, congrats, man.
Yeah.
Yeah,
for
thank
real.
you.
He's a dandy.
So that little competition you were in, how did he end out then?
Second. Second.
Where did they score the broken tine or not?
Yeah.
Okay.
And there was another guy. He shot a really solid mainframe 8. He kind of went up in like a turkey foot on his G2, I think. And that there's 160 something, I think.
For an 8-point?
It was a tank of an 8-point.
He was
Yep.
thick.
Yeah, very tall. I mean, he had everything you'd want in an 8-point.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
If you would have shot the other one, would he have won though? It would have been close.
Really close. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that is awesome. Okay, well,
Let's
let's dabble a little bit into turkey here real quick because turkey season is gonna be right around the corner, pretty much.
It's coming quick.
And Vinny is a turkey assassin.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah,
Live and breathe.
and you're almost to the point where turkeys. Are you to the point where turkey's better than hunting whitetail?
I'd have to say so.
Yeah, dude.
Yeah.
What's wrong with this
man,
guy?
this man. But that's the thing. If now this year and last year, since the numbers, we'll get into that. The numbers are low, but you're holding off on that second tag, like you did. You only
You're
shot
not
one.
allowed to have.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah,
You
yeah,
only
yeah.
have one
Well,
tag.
Well, last year one tag
Yes.
too?
Yes.
That
Yep,
was the
one
first
tag.
year, right? Or
Yeah.
2 years ago
I think last year was the first year.
that they dropped it.
Or
to
was it
one
2 years
bird?
ago now?
No,
It was
so
2 years ago.
No, last year was the first year. 2 years ago, you could still
You
shoot
could still
two.
shoot two, but you only shot one. Or no, you did.
I did shoot two. Opening morning and second morning.
Okay.
Listen,
Oh my.
if you could get on birds like him, though, you would. I'm not saying you would love it more than whitetail, but it would make it a lot more fun if you could shoot them back to back.
I mean, honestly, I enjoy turkey hunting. It's just I don't know. I've kind of grown in my. I don't know. I've kind of lost a little bit of interest.
Growing up, did you guys do more turkey hunting or deer hunting?
I didn't shoot my first turkey until 2010, and I shot my first deer in 2006. So when I was younger, Dad really didn't turkey hunt, and he had something to do in the spring. So kind of got into it, but I was really just myself that really got into it, and that's what I mean. It flows through my veins. I mean, it's awesome.
Yeah.
But this boy he just shows up and there's gobblers everywhere.
I wish.
The other day he sends me. It was a couple days ago. He sends me video. Just Tom's going bonkers. He's out checking the
Gobbling.
woods and just going nuts.
Yep, 4 of them.
Drop
First
me a
thing in the
pin.
morning.
yeah.
It's close
Oh,
to
dude,
state
he's got
ground.
pins out the wazoo.
That's all.
See, and that's another thing with forestry, man. You could go out and
Oh, you see so much land.
yeah.
It is. It's crazy. You see so many different habitat types and all different, across the state.
And you guys
I've been
see how
from
everybody sets up
Athens
their
to
property.
Cleveland, and
Yeah.
and everybody does it just a little bit different. And you know what? You just got to find what works for you. And
Yep.
it's neat to see all the different areas around Ohio here.
Yeah. But oh boy, I've killed 2 turkeys maybe. Well, I count at 1.5 because I shot at the same time as my buddy, and I think we both hit the turkey, but I only count it as a half a turkey. But I've been on a lot more filming adventures for turkeys than shooting because I just never really got into it. But
Really,
maybe a little bit more this year. We'll dabble into it.
Well,
Dude.
I was going to say, after
Yeah.
you tagged
Benny's
out on
taking
day
me
one,
this year.
yeah. Southern Ohio Public.
I was gonna say I'll come down and film you shoot one opening morning.
All right.
Sweet video.
Last year was the first year in a couple years that I didn't get one right off the rip,
Opening.
but I missed last year opening morning.
Ciao.
Yeah, that was a tough one.
But you were talking like Southern Ohio. Each year, the birds' numbers are just lower and because you got a couple spots you go and it's like it used to be just full of gobbles opening morning, and now every year it's like there's
just dwindles and
couple
dwindles
less,
and dwindles.
couple less.
Because, so I went down to Hawking, and that's kind of where I started hunting. Southern Ohio, really getting into that. And man, first year down there, first hunt ever, boom, killed a turkey within the first 30 minutes. And that's just me going down there because, well, that was the second day of season because I went out with my dad. He'd never killed one. That morning or opening day, I went out with Dad. He killed one. It's like, I'm just gonna go back down to school. And very next morning, went in, killed one within 30 minutes. And then after that, just started taking buddies out. I think there was a streak. I think it was 5 days in a row I was a part of a turkey getting killed. It was nuts. Well, third day, buddy missed. There was 3 of them called right in, probably 30 minutes after fly down, and he missed. And then it was on a roll that year. Last year was by far the hardest year down there.
Just finding birds or what?
Yes, finding birds. Always go down, season opens on a Saturday now, go down Friday night and try to roost. And last year, opening morning was the first morning that I wasn't sitting underneath a bird, the opening morning. And finally I heard one bird, and that's the one I ended up missing. I missed him probably about 8:30. And on Onyx, I did it as the crow flies, is like 1.3 miles from where I originally was. Down there, if it's a perfect, calm, crisp morning, you can hear birds forever.
Yeah.
I'm sitting there, I just hear trucks going up and down the road. It's like, well, someone's going to be on that bird. Someone's going to be on that bird. And I was like, you know what? That's the only chance I have right now. I took off after him and eventually caught up with him, hour and a half later. I mean, I was drenched in sweat just getting there. I mean, up and down hills. And that bird just kept gobbling. He was out on a point. And, down there, if you can get the high ground on a bird, you're in, good position down there. And he shut up. I got in probably about 200 yards back off the point on this ridge. And I was just over the crest of the ridge, so I didn't want to press too far and spook him, and he shut up. And I'm just thinking in my head, is like, this bird's going to come working right up the, the finger of this ridge. And I was like, I got to get to the top. Got to get up to the top where I can see both sides and shoot both sides. And I don't like calling down there. I hardly ever call to birds. And so I got up, started belly crawling to my spot. I picked a tree out right on the crest. I go to move a stick away from where I want to sit. I hear, I was like, oh, his hen nailed me. I look over. It wasn't his hen. It was him putting at me, probably 30, 40 yards away. And I spun. He took off. I started blasting. And away he went.
So rewind. If you don't call to birds, how did if he was on that point gobbling, how did you get him to come your direction?
I just knew naturally if those birds are up high, they like just working those fingers out as the morning goes. A lot of times they'll pitch off and roost right off the point of that. If you can get back that ridge, say in a saddle area somewhere, a lot of times, 30 minutes, an hour and a half after they fly down and work that little strut zone out on that point of that ridge.
Yeah, they always get on that bench.
Yep. And then they'll just suck right up the finger of that ridge, and you just got to be sitting there waiting. You got to be patient. And down there, I've called to a couple birds and called a few in, but it's very light calling, and you have to get inside that bubble.
Yeah.
Be within 100 yards of that bird when you start calling, if you want a chance of killing them.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a big thing that people just call.
And that's I've killed birds down there where you just hear someone just slamming on a box call. So I just slip around the ridge, slip up past them, get up high where that bird wants to be. Just listen to which way that bird's heading. If he's gobbling enough, and get an idea where he's at. Use the terrain features. Just kind of know in your head where does that bird want to be, and get in between him and where he wants to be. And 2 years ago, the second morning, the bird I killed the second day, I traveled probably over a mile on that bird too. And I sat down and killed him within 5 minutes. But there was someone down the hill just slamming on a box call. Mm-hmm. He'd respond to it, but he wasn't going down the hill to that call.
Yeah.
I slipped up on the ridge and got set up. He gobbled once way out on the point. Then he slipped, same scenario, but this one, he ended up flopping.
Got whacked.
Yeah, killed him at 15 yards. And that I called one time, just real soft yelps to him, just because I heard him walking.
Do you scratch in the leaves at all? Or
yes.
Not? Yeah.
Yep. If I can, if I know he's out of sight, just a little bit extra, scratching the leaves, sometimes that makes a difference.
Yep.
I need to go with a turkey whisperer.
Yeah.
Jeez.
I got a couple spots on public where there's all kinds of birds up on the limb. As soon as they hit the ground, they shut up. I've never been successful.
They shut up, and then you hear these guys walking around going, oh.
Yeah, the owl hoots got real bad the last couple of years. All there's human owls running around.
Yeah.
You hear a truck door slamming, and it's like,
I know a guy that dresses like an owl.
whatever it takes, man.
Can you hoot? Can
A
you
guy,
hoot like now?
a guy that's I can.
What about he can meow and he can hoot?
That's what I'm saying. I'm
He's the
a
jack
guy
of all
who,
trades.
yeah, exactly, dressed like an owl, meow like a cat.
Yep.
We need to make a shirt like that, and you can pitch it to Osseo.
Oh, 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 oh.
There you go.
Not bad.
Yeah.
Do you have like a signature thing you try and get them to gobble when they're on the roost? Do you do an owl hoot or not?
Do you meow at them?
I might have to start trying that.
Get underneath them.
Yeah.
Before.
Yeah, if I want them to fly to the adjacent ridge, I'll sit down there and act like a bobcat at the base of the tree.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
But yeah, a lot of times down there, the morning of, I like to roost them the night before and be right underneath them, because those birds, now I have had them where they pitch down to the bottom, but it's very, very rarely. A lot of times, they're going to pitch off those points. They're right in there. They're pitching down right in front of me. And I've killed a lot of birds by roosting them the night before, never calling, being within 50 yards of the tree when daylight breaks and they pitch right into my lap and they're dead within seconds.
Do you find that they pitch to a lower elevation, or do you find that they pitch to a higher elevation?
Higher. Almost. I mean, I'd say 90% of the time I'll see those birds. I will pitch. If you're up on top of that ridge, that bird is going to pitch right into you. I have had one where I didn't end up killing the bird, but I hunted him probably 4 days in a row, and he would pitch a different direction every morning. I mean, I've had him
that'd make you angry.
all the way down to the bottom, but he couldn't call to him. And I mean, I'd try, but those birds just shut up and they're gone.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Yeah.
Henned up, no pulling them in.
Yeah. They're smart.
That's what I find on turkeys, to be honest, is like, I don't really travel too much to like public, and I've killed probably like 10, 12 birds in my life. Killed, I think, 4 or 5 in Kentucky and then the rest in Ohio. But I've found that around here, there are no birds, at least in our area. I mean, seriously,
No.
like you'll find a pocket of them, but like, why go kill them? They're not around. So like for me, I got to travel to Southern Ohio, and it's like, I don't know. It's just a bird, I'd rather wait till the population gets up a little bit more and then get back into it, but that's just my thing. Like, obviously something's going on that we don't know about.
Yeah, I'm seeing a huge decline in the turkey numbers. And really, you got to look at the whole scheme of things. What's changed in the last couple of years? Fur prices. That and habitat. Turkeys need, high stem count, some thicker areas for nesting, brooding habitat,
Yep.
and then also, mature timber for roosting, acorns, a lot of the food. So turkeys need a wide variety of habitat.
Water.
And it's harder and harder to find now.
Yeah.
And that's probably part of it. But I really think probably the biggest factor is raccoons, nest raiders, and bobcats. The bobcat population in the last couple of years really seemed like it just exploded.
And especially in the southern part of the state.
Yes.
Not as much northern, but
Even around here, I'm seeing a lot more.
Yeah.
A lot more bobcats. A couple of years ago, it's like, oh, wow, I got a bobcat on camera. Now it's like, pull the card. Yeah, there's a bobcat again.
Yeah.
and I think you've sent me pictures of bobcats with poults in its mouth and stuff.
Yeah, and I've had that. I've had some pretty crazy. I mean, bobcats. Killing wide variety. Poults.
Yeah.
Squirrels, rabbits, a fox. I had a fox with a fawn in its mouth. That was
Fox.
Yes, a red fox. That was the craziest thing I've ever seen.
Wow.
And that was that spring. And then later that year, it seemed like it was probably, I'm sure there's more than one fox around there. But I ended up killing a red fox on that same property later that November. I was like, because normally I wouldn't shoot a fox. I just think they're kind of cool. I didn't think they had, caused that much of a threat. But after seeing one with a fawn, obviously it's probably a newborn within a day or two.
Right.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, you're going, buddy.
I don't blame you.
Vinny and I know of the only Tom in Wayne County that's strutting around, but we don't. Neither of us want to kill it because
Oh,
it's
dude.
the only bird left.
I'm telling you, dude. I mean, obviously that's an exaggeration, but
Yeah,
even 5 years ago,
I know.
the population has probably, I mean, we're talking like 60 to 70% less than what it was just 4 or 5 years ago.
Yeah, that's like now, even like, a couple years ago, if a nice gobbler came by in the fall, yeah, sure, I'd shoot him. But last couple years, I've been passing up birds in the fall just because the numbers are so low. I get a lot more enjoyment out hunting them in the spring. So it's like, why shoot them in the fall, and especially a hen? Why? I mean, right now it just.
Yeah.
If you care about the population,
is that still on?
Yeah.
You can still shoot a hen in the fall.
Yeah.
It doesn't
Why?
make any sense.
Why didn't they take that off when they took it down to a 1 bird
Yeah,
limit?
that's interesting.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like it's more tradition. So I know a lot of guys that, it's the fall, tradition, you go bust the flock, kiki, call them back in and shoot. And so I feel like it's that. I know there's not a lot of revenue off of tide sales for the fall, but more tradition and just, keeping that section of the people happy.
Listen, I'm a firm believer, and I'll say it to any ODNR's face. They have no cares whatsoever about any of the wildlife. It's all money based. I'll say it right to their face, and I'm not saying like specific game wardens, but the higher ups that actually make the decisions.
The office guys, not the field guys.
They don't care. The field guys care. I should reword that. Like, I'm not talking game wardens.
Yeah.
They just have an agenda to push, is what you're saying.
I'm saying that we are bought off by insurance companies, and I'll be straight up. Like, Farm Bureau, same thing. They all hate the deer.
Yeah.
Oh, I
and
know they all
turkeys,
hate the
and
deer.
like it's just is what it is. So that's my opinion. I'll be quiet.
100% though. Yeah.
See, someone agrees with you.
That's why we brought him on.
We asked them that question before they come on. If they disagree, they're not allowed to come on.
Right. Yeah. That was a disclaimer when I walked in the door.
He had to sign the waiver.
Shoot.
Anything else about turkeys that you guys want to cover? What's the longest bearded bird or spurred bird that you've killed?
I had a couple beards in the 11s, and I had one bird as 1 3/4 spurs. So that was a
1 3/4.
Yes.
That's
Almost a 2-inch spur.
Yes, that was the biggest bird, and I shot that bird. It was still youth season when I did hunt youth season, so that's been some years ago now.
You sure it wasn't an Osceola down in Florida?
I wish.
Them suckers got like hooks like that.
Yeah, that was my biggest bird, and he was like 28 pounds.
Wow,
It
that's a big bird.
Yep, that was my biggest bird. I've killed a couple of them 1.5-inch spurs.
Yeah,
typical, but that one was just freaking.
I've never
slammer.
killed a bird with a big spur. They're always either broke off or like 1.25 to 1.5 inches.
Yeah, you get those those 3-4-year-old birds, then you're looking at that 1.5 inches.
They're all broke off. Yeah, that's my problem. But I did kill one bird that had a 13.25-inch beard.
Wow, I've never killed one with over a 12-inch beard.
That's the only one that's anything. Everything else is around 10 inches.
Yeah, that's your
So typical.
yeah. And like you said, with the turkey population now, birds we're hunting are probably 2-3-year-olds.
2-year-olds.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah, your oldest birds. And now this last year, weather is kind of what I want to touch on too. Is I think we had a better survival rate this last year. I'm seeing a lot more jakes. Because we did have bad weather there for 3-4 years in a row, and I think that might be another factor to really figure in is the weather impact on poult survival.
Do you think a wet year or cold year?
Both. The wetter, that really puts a hurting on them.
Yeah.
But yeah, just having those wet, cold snaps, later in the spring there, the last 3-4 years really did. But last year, it seemed like it's just a little bit drier, a little bit warmer. And a lot of people, everybody I've been talking to and myself been seeing a lot of jakes. So I guess that's future's bright for next
good,
year. Yeah.
We call those Jaret birds.
Stay away from them, Jaret.
Those are ones I can call in, son.
That's funny.
Well, that was good.
Yeah, I really enjoyed myself. Thanks
I
for
did
coming
too.
along and
Yeah, not a problem.
talking about your beautiful buck and
Man,
turkey
that thing's
stories.
Tank.
Learned a little bit, honestly, like about turkey hunting. Maybe I'd like to tag along if you guys ever go and just kind of see how you.
Yeah, we'll
tackle
have
the
to.
woods.
Yeah.
Yeah, he might have to be our turkey consultant.
I can run the camera while you boys hunt. How about that?
Hey, I will.
You better
always
shoot
carry
quick.
gun. Oh, I shoot quick. I'm not telling him when to hit it, but I'll shoot quick.
You're talking to the right guy over here. I gotta tell him twice, pull trigger.
I wonder what the record is of the most amount of guys that went out at one time to go hunt turkeys.
Like
We
in a
should-
group?
Yes. Like we should like break the Guinness. Like all 6 of us go out and we should.
Oh, it's got to be more than that.
Oh yeah.
Oh,
We're probably talking like 100 dudes. I'd say.
You think so?
We just surround
Surround the bird.
tree, and everybody just gets in like a 150-yard radius. And
But
just,
only one person has a gun, because then we'd maybe shoot each other.
not with bird
No,
shot.
Oh, that's true.
We'll face away.
Yeah.
Everybody face away.
Wait till he gets outside of the circle, then you can start shooting.
Everybody has to go back to back until the turkey breaks the circle. Then it's fair game.
Yeah.
Everybody's just like watching over their shoulders.
Everybody sitting with their shotguns like this.
Yeah.
Oh, that's
On the left.
that's a dumb way to end this podcast, but I'm all about it.
Yep.
Let's wrap it up, Kevy.
Alrighty. Well, you want to drop your Instagram handle or social media handle if you have one?
For your business and personal.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. My Instagram is V_Defelice, and then my business is Heartland Forest Management. So I got Facebook and Instagram at Heartland Forest Management.
Okay.
Awesome.
And then
Thanks for coming on.
Yeah.
we got
Thanks.
one closing question for you.
Yeah, I forgot
All right.
about that.
What have you learned in hunting in general that you can apply to everyday life? You can get deep with it.
Patience is probably the number one key in life. You can't overthink things. Go about it simple, and you just have to wait. Wait for that opportunity to fall into your lap. It'll come. If you work hard at it and you're persistent, that opportunity will come. So patience is probably the number one thing that I just, I like to hustle, I'll say, but then you really have to sit back and like, all right, if something's not going right, sit back, take a breather, and just let it come to you.
Mm-hmm.
And that applies in real life and with hunting.
Yep.
Really, you can get down, you can really get down on yourself, but just taking that step back can really just kind of rejuvenate you and lead you on the right path.
It's good.
Yep, I like it.
Yeah.
Love it.
I don't mean to interrupt, but it looks like we forgot to plug in our laptop, and it's about to die.
Well,
So
it's plugged in. I don't know.
wonderful.
Well,
Let's wrap this up before we
wrap it
lose
up.
everything.
Yep.
Thanks for answering, and thanks for coming
Thanks
on.
for coming on,
Yeah.
Vinny.
We really
Not a problem.
appreciate it. Yeah, look
Sure you
forward
guys
to
having
maybe
me.
doing a little
Yeah.
turkey hunting this spring.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
for sure.
Yeah.
I'll run the camera, and you boys just have at it.
Game on.
Yep.
Let's do it.
Okay, Kevy.
Alrighty. Doesn't matter what you've done in the past. You can always be born again, and born again is out.